Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our study of the Gospel of Mark. We're in chapter 10 today, and we're beginning with verse 32. Last time we were together, Jesus encountered the rich young ruler, and Jesus had some very hard things to say about our possessions and about the way we live our lives, and reminded us of what he's already taught us, especially in the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 6, that the great competitor for God's affections is our own greed, our own ambition. And we're going to see ambition on full display today in verses 32 through 45. Anyway, Jesus begins this section by making his another warning. This is the third time that he makes a prediction and tells them exactly what's going to happen. And to illustrate how bad they are as listeners, they start arguing about who's going to be the best when Jesus takes over in just a few days and we reach Jerusalem. They were on the road going up to Jerusalem, and Jesus was walking ahead of them. Such a good image. I mean, he's leading the way. He's striding in front, heading directly towards his destiny. They were amazed, and those who followed were fearful. And again he took the 12 aside and began to tell them what was going to happen to him, saying, "Behold, we're going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be delivered to the chief priests and scribes, and they will condemn him to death, and they will deliver him up to the Gentiles. And they, the Gentiles, will mock him and spit on him and scourge him and kill him. And 3 days later he will rise again." Jesus could not be more clear than that. And James and John, the two sons of Zebedee, came up to him saying, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you." And he said to them, "What do you want me to do for you?" And they said to him, "Grant that we may sit in your glory, one on your right and one on your left." And Jesus said to them, "You do not know what you're asking for. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink, or to be baptized with the baptism with which I am baptized?" And they said to him, "We are able." And Jesus said to them, "The cup that I drink you shall drink, and you shall be baptized with the baptism with which I am baptized. But to sit on my right or my left is not mine to give. It is for those for whom it has been prepared." After hearing this, the 10 began to feel indignant towards James and John. You think? And calling them to himself, Jesus said to them, "You know that those who are recognized as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and that great men exercise authority over them. But it's not so among you. Whoever wishes to become great among you shall be your servant, and whoever wishes to be first among you shall be the slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life a ransom for many." Jesus could not be more clear about what's going to happen. And it seems like the general disciples, the group that's following, are at least getting some sense of it, because they're amazed and afraid to see Jesus so determined, striding out in front, leading them to Jerusalem. But the 12 are as obtuse as ever, even though he takes them aside to explain things to them. And James and John, and let's not forget, Peter, James, and John among the 12 are the three that go places no one else goes. They went to the Mount of Transfiguration most recently. They were there for the raising of Jairus' daughter. They will go into the garden with him later. Peter, James, and John. Do we get the picture of what's happening here? If Jesus has a right side and a left side, and he's going to sit on his throne, he's got room for two, not for three. And these two brothers want to be the two. And you know, it's just a stunning thing, a brazen thing that they do. And Jesus says, almost like talking to toddlers, who've been caught. Really, that's what you want? Are you prepared to drink the cup that I'm going to drink and be baptized with the baptism I'm going to be baptized with? Are you ready for that? We are. They don't know. You know, Peter's insistence that he would never leave Jesus is straight from his heart. He intends never to. But these two don't know what in the world they're talking about. They just want to be in power on the side of Jesus. And Jesus said, "All right, you will." And they were. And they were. James was executed early on. And John lived a long life, but as far as we know, died as a quarry slave on the island of Patmos. And they did go through this. And then Jesus says a curious thing. He says, "It's not mine to give. It's to those for whom it was prepared." Although they will be persecuted and they are going to suffer, Jesus cannot force them to handle that properly. And, you know, the people who sit down with Jesus, Revelations chapter 3, verse 20, are those who let him in. And then not only do they sit down with Jesus, but they sit down with God as well, as that verse makes clear. So it's not his to give. And that's an interesting thing that he says. And then the other apostles, this really bothers them. It angers them. And so Jesus calls them to himself and he said, "Listen, get this straight. We're not like everyone else." And he mentions the Gentiles. And when you read Gentiles, read us. People who inherit the Western civilization, the culture of the Mediterranean and of Greece and of Rome. Us. He's rejecting our values, the values that shape our societies and have for more than 2,500 years. That's what he's rejecting, and he's naming them. He's putting a label on it and said, "No, it's not that way among you. Out there, your position is your value, and your position gives you perks, and you exercise your perks to maintain your power. But that's not the way it is in the kingdom. In the kingdom, if you want to be first, you are the slave of all. If you want to be great, you are the servant of all. And to tell you what I mean, look at me." And so this section begins and ends with Jesus telling us quite clearly that he's going to be a sacrifice for all humanity. The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life a ransom for many. Well, tomorrow we'll be leaving the outskirts of Jericho and meeting blind Bartimaeus. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.